Satalo with GDL Entertainment, Games Done Legit, and we're talking to the new world champion of Donkey Kong, Robbie Lakeman. How's it going, Robbie?
Pretty good. How are you?
I am excellent because I'm talking to you. I mean, this is like a dream come true. I mean, we had the movie come out, The King of Kong, which filled in a lot of people like me who loved Donkey Kong when they were little, but didn't know that there was this worldwide race for the top scores and everything. And so it's a story a lot of almost every gamer now knows. And now you're at the forefront of that. So how does that feel? What's that like?
It hasn't been a week yet. It's been pretty interesting just to see the world's reaction to it. I guess I didn't think it would ever be this big, but uh, yeah, it's been amazing. Everyone's been really supportive of everything that I've done. So it's good to see all the hard work pay off.
Yeah. So yeah, man, it's funny, man. You sound just like Steve Levy in the movie. I
Yeah,
just wanted to do,
I've gotten that a few times.
and that's great too because I've been able to. My background is from the fighting game community, and I was able to run this international tournament called Seasons Beatings. We did it for 7 years, and a lot of the guys, at that level, were really cool, down to earth guys, and some of them, a little prima donna, not as fun to deal with, on a personal level. But yeah, you seem like a real down to earth guy. So tell us about how you got involved with Donkey Kong, and how you came to be where you are now.
So I actually grew up in New Hampshire, so I lived within driving distance, a fun spot, and
Oh,
I had a couple friends that were going up there once a week to try to break a record on a game called Warlords. So I kind of just tagged along with them, and while they were doing that, I was just kind of going off and venturing off and playing all like some classic games. A lot of them. I mean, I'm only 27, so I didn't really grow up with these games, so they were just kind of all new to me, and I just started playing whatever just started appealing to me. And within the first year of getting into that scene at FunSpot, I had broken a couple records, and they were lesser known titles, um, so there wasn't really too much competition. So I wanted to get somewhere where there was a little more competition, and when I did see The King of Kong, this was back in 2011. Um, they had that segment where they talk about the top 5 games of all time. You got Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, you got Galaga, Defender, and Donkey Kong. So I figured I would take on one of those games. So I picked Donkey Kong, and I was talking with my buddy at the bar about it, and he just we kind of just made a friendly little bar bet about me getting into the top 20, and then eventually getting into the kill screen area. So I got the first kill screen within 9 months, right before Kong Off 2, and I actually ended up going to the Kong Off 2.
oh,
So
wow, okay.
yeah, once I went there, I did meet Steve and Billy and Hank and Vincent and a lot of other players. So that kind of just pushed me to keep going and reach my full potential. And yeah, here I am today on top of the leaderboard. So it's been a fun little ride.
Yeah, geez. Yeah, congrats again on all that. What was that like? Because I imagine you've seen King of Kong, right?
Yeah, I saw that back in 2011 when I first started getting into the classic gaming scene.
Yeah. So, how did you find those guys compared to seeing this movie? A lot of us have watched it, over and over. What was that like? Because maybe you had this idea of these guys' personalities from the film. What was that like to meet each of the top guys, in person?
It was interesting because the film it is a documentary, but it's also there isn't a whole lot like it isn't 100% truthful, I guess, as a lot of documentaries are. But
Hmm.
uh, yeah, it's funny when you talk to these guys about the film and they start including you on things that weren't in the film, that you start hearing stories that were never brought up in the film. So it's kind of cool to get that inside information. Um, Over the last couple of Fun Spot tournaments, I've gotten pretty close with Brian Koo. So as you know, the kill screen coming up, one of the
Yeah.
biggest scenes in the film. So yeah, he's filled me in on a lot of cool things about what went on down at Fun Spot, and yeah, you start hearing the stories. But yeah, as far as like meeting Billy and Steve and Brian Koo and a lot of the other guys, you realize like they're just all great people, and they support the hobby, and they want more people to get into the hobby because we are a niche community. It's pretty small, so we like to welcome any new talent that wants to take on the top scores.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And do you have any like of the more interesting anecdotes of they were like, hey, well, this didn't quite happen the way or the chronologically the way it was depicted in the film. Like any good little tidbits for us?
Um, Probably one thing that Brian told me was that when they filmed that Fun Spot, they didn't really tell them exactly what they were filming. If they didn't tell them that they were filming like two guys going after the record type of thing. They basically told the gamers that they just wanted to film the tournament, film the gaming hobby, and do a documentary based on that. And yeah, all the gamers had no idea, and so they let them in. They gave them full access to the tournament and throughout the whole weekend. And I don't know, kind of looking back on it, they were kind of deceived in a way, but it ended up working out in the long run because they had no idea what was going on, so they couldn't really fabricate it too much, I guess, as far as the some of the scenes in the film.
Okay. Yeah, they did mention on the commentary that they didn't know what their angle was going to be, and yeah, so I mean that's really interesting how the story kind of like morphed into what it was. Uh, but yeah, I can see that being like weird, being like, oh, maybe you're there for like MacBeat or something, and it's like, oh, they're gonna film me because I'm the best, at Warlords, or Marvel Man is like the one guy setting those raiders with the split and everything, and then it's
Yeah.
all about Donkey Kong.
Yeah, and I know some of the gamers kind of felt a little weirded out by it because a lot of them do like to keep their strategies to their games. If they have a record on a game, they like to keep them secret. So they didn't really want anyone to really intrude on them too much when they were playing some of these games. So, but yeah, it was one of the best. The whole kill screen coming up and Steve Wiebe doing that live was definitely one of the best moments in the film and in gaming in general, just because it just stands out. It just stands out opposed to a lot of the other ones.
Yeah, yeah, and the kill screen is just so interesting in that game too, and it's so hard to get to, and yeah, I mean it's crazy the level of skill that you guys have in that game.
Yes, yeah, it takes a lot of work, a lot of practice. I spent a lot of time up at Fun Spot. I learned on that machine. That was the first time I ever played Donkey Kong was on their machine, and then I also got it on the emulator on my computer at home. So I would play there some days, and then I would go home and play it on my computer. But yeah, luckily for me, by the time I got into the game, a lot of the information on how to improve your score was already available. So all I had to do was just kind of do my research and talk to others. And a lot of people do live stream their games, so I could watch others and kind of apply that to my own game and my own strategy. So that's kind of how I learned so quickly.
Okay, yeah, because you're able to build off of what those guys have done, and then further take your own style based on like what those guys had accomplished. I'd imagine, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, you do see a lot. You see almost unlimited amount of situations in the game. People who have been playing this game for over 5 years, they occasionally see a situation that they've never run into before, just based on the randomness. But yeah, there are certain parts of the game where you die and it's partly to randomness, but then you see somebody else get out of it, and you go, oh, okay, like that's how they get out of it, and then you apply that to your game, and that's one extra life. So I mean that could be almost an hour of gameplay if you go that long in that one man. So it can really make a difference.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, so speaking of, I'm trying to get your YouTube video here, your 8 minute YouTube up here to showcase with your gameplay. So along those lines, what are some of like the specific techniques that you came up with in Donkey Kong that enabled you to get a score that no one else has been able to achieve?
Basically, a lot of us use the similar techniques, a lot of the same basics, and same point pressing techniques. I don't know if you're watching the video right now, but
I
um,
am. Mhm.
yeah, if you see me on the barrel board,
Yeah.
kind of on the top where that top hammer is, I'm kind of just standing up there and grouping the barrels and then jumping and then climbing back down and then jumping them again. I don't know if you see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been one of the newer techniques that came out over the last few years from Ross Besinger and Dean Saglio. They came up with those techniques. So those were already out before I started even playing. So um, I kind of just watched them do it and then eventually do it myself. And in a way, there are patterns to doing that, and it's just recognizing them with wild barrels as a variable, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, it's everyone plays similarly, but everyone still also has their own playing style, which kind of makes the game fun when we talk strategies. But yeah, it's we kind of know what the game is capable of and how to achieve it. So it's just a matter of doing it for over 3 hours.
Does it? And it gets progressively harder, right? Each time you cycle through the game.
Actually, the thing is with that game, the hardest part about that game is levels 1 through 4, because that's where you see a lot of the crazier wild barrels. There's a lot more randomness, and once you get to level 5, that's pretty much where it doesn't max out in difficulty. It actually kind of gets easier in a way because the strategies that you apply to the game are more consistent. They produce consistent results as opposed to the first 4 levels. Because
Hmm.
when they first made the game, they designed it so the earlier levels would be harder as opposed to most games where they're easier. So they wanted people to keep pumping in tokens or quarters. So they made the first board is actually one of the hardest boards in the game.
Oh wow. Okay. Because the patterns aren't like established in the game. Is that kind of what you're saying with the barrels?
Yeah, especially with Donkey Kong throwing the wild barrels. The wild barrels in the earlier levels, they're less predictable, and also in the game, you can actually manipulate the barrels to go down certain ladders if you want. And the
Oh
probability
yeah.
of throwing those barrels are a lot lower early on in the game. But once you get to a certain level, the percentage goes much higher. So you actually have um, you have a little less to work with early on. So that's what makes it more difficult.
Oh okay. Um, the elevator boards, because they talk so much about the third elevators in the movie. Um, is that just like the way Steve did it? Is that just the way that like everybody has to tackle that part with how close together um, the elevators are at the top right before you get to Donkey Kong? Is there like an alternate pattern that you came up with to do that, or is that just the way everybody handles that, the way he did, the way he explains in the movie?
I'm trying to think of how he explains in the movie, but yeah, if you see if you can picture the elevator board, you have there's the hat to the right, and then there's I think the umbrella to the top left. So there is a strategy to grab those prizes efficiently, and then also jump over. And if you want to grab the third prize, that's a little more risk, but it's what I do, and others really don't. But that can be a little bit risky. But as far as surviving that level, it's pretty much all similar. You wanna stand in certain spots and wait for a certain spring, and you go on that certain spring and make sure the next one isn't a dangerous one. So sometimes you start climbing up the ladder, and then you realize you're not going to make it, so you have to climb back down and retreat once again, and then kind of wait it out. So yeah, a lot of the strategies on that, but that's actually that's probably the easiest board in the game once you get to a certain level, because that's just all human error if you die on those, because you should never die on those.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Um, I actually once ever I'm not like very good at Donkey Kong. I like classic games and everything, and I play Street Fighter and stuff. And I've studied those games. But there's only one time ever I got to the third elevator board, and I was so happy. I was like, oh my god! It's like I'm trying to use what Steve taught me in the King of Kong, and I died at the top.
Yeah, that's
It's hard.
that is it's difficult. That's probably one of the first walls in the game that you run into is being able once you get to that board, it's difficult to learn. And if you're trying to learn it on a machine, chances are you're only going to have one or two tries at it, and if you don't even know what you're looking for, it's mostly luck, or you're just most likely going to die, because yeah, they designed the game so people would most likely not make it past that board.
Interesting. Okay. So, when did you get to the point where you were like, man, like I feel like I'm progressing at this game. I'm gonna go out and buy a machine, and I really want to be the best person in the world at Donkey Kong.
That was just over a year ago. I had I had scored 1,070,000 points on my emulator, so that was past Billy and Steve's highest scores at the time. Um, and after that, the record was just over 60,000 points away. So I felt like I was within striking distance of the record. So that's when I really went out and got a machine. Um, one of the guys that works at FunSpot, he actually had a machine, an extra spare machine, and he sold it to me. This is when I lived back in New Hampshire, so I had that machine for a few months, and then I moved out to Arizona. So I had to sell that machine, and then once I got out here, I found another machine, so I just picked that right up again. So I've been trying ever since.
So, how much do you play like on a daily basis when you were really serious about trying to get the score?
It was pretty much a daily thing. I work later in the afternoon, so after work I would get home and I'd fire up the machine and set up my webcam and everything and start streaming a game. So I would make sure to play pretty much every single night. Um, and I have a perfectionist personality. I'm pretty stubborn at the same time. So it's like I have the attitude of I'm not going to bed until I get at least a score that I'm happy with. So I just kind of just grinded away at it until I finally got there.
Yeah, wow, that's cool. I can definitely respect that. I also used to play Dance Dance Revolution competitively, of all things. We just had like a big scene here in Ohio, and the best player in the world, Mega Man X, was from Cleveland area, so it just like mushroomed out from there. People just trying to get serious at the game, and so I can understand that, just being like it's you versus the game, where it's just you versus a machine, and you just like grind it out, grind it out, grind it out till you're happy, with the progress that you made or like a certain score. So that's really cool.
So this record game that I had, it was actually the third time within the last few months where I had a shot at the record and it came down to the last board. So the first time was just about 3 months back, and it came down to the last board, and I knew I needed a lot of points, and I ended up dying on that board, just going for it. And then there was a second time about a month later where I was 1,500 points shy of the record, and actually got to the kill screen. So it was pretty much a monthly thing. It was pretty much once a month I would get to that last board with the chance at the record, and the third time it actually worked out.
Oh, cool. Okay. Um, Hey, Robbie, I'm just gonna take a second here. My I can't get it to switch windows and stuff, so I'm gonna stop the broadcast and then re-invite you, and we'll do like a part two. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, give me one sec here. Yeah, I think the shoot, it sucks. I think adding the YouTube and like adding like the showcase window was just like too much for Hangouts to handle or something.
Oh, yeah.
But It's recording, but it won't let me click on. Can you go to hang up or leave the call or stop broadcast or anything on your end?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, leave the call. All right.
Okay, yeah, try that, and then I'll hit you up on Facebook real quick.
Okay.
Cool.